What is going on, y'all? This is Pay Me in Dividends, and today is February 22nd, 2025. Now, of course, the market is closed today, right? But I want to look at NVDY from YieldMax. This is becoming one of my favorite high yield income ETFs, if not my favorite, right? And I want to tell you exactly why I feel that way in this video. So the first thing we're going to cover is I want to look at the past distributions, right? So as we can see, the most recent distribution has been about 82 cents a share. We'll round it up and say 83 cents a share. And what I like most about NVDY is its consistency, right? It has fluctuated because, again, these distributions are based off of how much premium YieldMax as an ETF manager is able to extract from their options and then pay you out that yield in the form of a dividend. But regardless, it has been very, very consistent. And one thing I want to note about NVDY is, yes, it pays a 50% dividend yield, which is huge, right? That is a huge yield, especially compared to traditional dividend stocks. Think of blue chip stocks like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, stocks like that, right? Those are dividend growth companies. However, look at a 50% yield and what you can get for your money, right? And it is also paid on a monthly basis. So I think a lot of times NVDY gets looked over because Misty, which is another position that I do hold in my portfolio, but Misty is, one of those flagship ETFs from YieldMax. And again, I do hold a position in Misty and I love Misty as well, but it has such a high dividend yield, right, that I think sometimes NVDY just kind of gets looked over, but I love how consistent it's been, right? So I want to take a look at the chart. So NVDY has been decreasing in share price over the last couple months, and there's a reason for that. The whole DeepSeek situation with NVIDIA, which I do not think it's a concern. I think if anything, it makes the market a bit more competitive, but NVIDIA is still the top dog. They are still leaders in the industry, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that here in a moment. But if we look at the 1 year chart, right, it is down 11%. Now remember, guys, what I've told you in previous videos, it's all about opportunity. It's all about when you get into these funds. And a lot of times when the market is red, that can mean that there's a good opportunity in order for you to put yourself in a position in order to be successful, right? So here's a tool I want to show you guys if you aren't aware of it. But if you go to finriz.com, if you just go to Google and type in the S&P heat map, you will get this heat map, right? And it'll basically show you the performance of the S&P 500 over certain periods of time, and you can kind of change the times here. Right now we're looking at a 1 month chart, so we can see NVIDIA, which is the underlying asset of NVDY, is down 8% over the last month. Now again, you tell me, guys, do you think NVIDIA will continue to be profitable? I think that they will continue to do awesome things moving into the future. And the reason I know that is because look at their revenue, right? So this is one of the things I like to look at when I invest in these high yield funds. I like to pay attention to the underlying asset because not all of these funds are created equal. Some of them are horrible, some of them are great, right? So one of the things I like to look at is what is the underlying asset doing, right? So we can see that, again, NVIDIA is making tons of money, right? Look at this revenue, and then look at this profit margin, right? So if you don't quite understand what profit margin is, this basically says that they profit 55 cents on the dollar of every dollar of revenue, right? So pretty much 55% of their revenue is profit. So I want to put that into context, right? Because it may not really seem like a big deal, but let's look at two really, really big companies, right? Let's look at Microsoft. Microsoft is a very, very high revenue company, and they generate a lot of profits, right? Their profit is 34%. So again, NVIDIA is 55%, Microsoft is 34%, and I think we can all agree that Microsoft is a very, very profitable company, right? Let's take a look at Apple, another company that generates a lot of revenue, right? We can see here $124 billion. their net profit margin is 29%. So that means for every dollar of revenue that they generate, they profit 29 cents on the dollar, right? So again, if we go back to NVIDIA, we can see that they have a very, very high net profit margin. And again, these option incomes are based off of obviously the premium that's being extracted from the option market. So it's really based off of the volatility of the underlying asset, but you also want to make sure that that your money are in assets that are good as well, right? You don't just want something that is paying a ridiculously high yield but does not have a solid underlying asset, right? It's the same thing with MSTY from YieldMax. If you believe in Bitcoin, at least the underlying asset is solid, right? And it has a bright future. So you have to look at the underlying asset. You have to put it into context depending on if it's a crypto or if it's security like a stock or something like that. But you have to put it into context and you have to look at what it is you're actually investing to, because although YieldMax makes it very clear that you are not directly invested into NVIDIA, it is still sort of a proxy of NVIDIA, right? They're still performing options based off of NVIDIA and then extracting that premium. So yes, they're correct. You're not investing directly into shares of NVIDIA, but you want to make sure that that underlying asset is still something that you would invest in, regardless whether or not this income ETF existed or not, right? So I just wanted to show you guys this. This is the reason why NVDY is slowly becoming my favorite high yield income ETF. Again, I think it gets overshadowed a lot, but if we zoom out here, right, we can see since inception, it is actually up 5%. And if we're being honest, the share price has remained relatively stable. We can see the 52-week high is 31 cents, $31 per share, and the 52-week low is $17 per share. But for the most part, this ETF has remained relatively stable. And to be honest, when it comes to these high yield income ETFs, this is what you want. This is not a growth asset. You definitely don't want the share price to tank either, because you don't want to lose out on principal and sacrifice principal just solely for dividend income. But you want something that either trades sideways or maybe moves up a little bit over time and just pays that consistent dividend. And I found in my research that most of the times it comes with companies that have a really, really good underlying asset, right? So I think that's it for this video. You guys let me know in the comments, what do you think about NVDY? Are you invested in it? You guys let me know. As always, I appreciate you stopping by the channel, and I will catch you in the next video.